Welcome back! In this lesson, we'll talk about storytelling design, which is a crucial step before moving on to designing the actual interface. One of the biggest things that has helped me is learning how to become a better storyteller and the power of a story. And by this, I mean if you want to build a product and you want to build a product that is relevant to folks, you need to put yourselves in their shoes and you need to write a story from their side. So we spend a lot of time writing what's called user narratives. This is a quote by Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter and Square. Now that we know what we want the users to be able to do with the app and that we understand who they are, it's time to start figuring out how they will interact with the product. In order to do that, we'll create user narratives for the product that will illustrate every step in the user's journey through it. I refer to them as narratives or stories. The persona we've defined earlier will be the voice of the story. That means we won't be saying the app should do X, but I, as Kevin, do X. So remember to write your narratives using the active voice. There's two types of user narratives. One that's more generic, that says, as Kevin, I can take a picture and apply a filter to make it beautiful. The other type of narratives is more detailed and explicit. It describes each step of the flow. For instance, I click the photo button to take a picture. Next story will be, I can swipe to choose a filter. When I click a filter, it alters the image accordingly. This second type of stories is very useful for many reasons. It allows you to make sure you have a comprehensive approach of the flow and that you're not forgetting anything. It will also be very useful when coding the app, especially if someone else is doing it for you. But it can be a bit tricky to do without visual support. That's why we'll be using that type of stories as we build the first version of the app in the next section. For now, we want to get a general sense of how the app will work. Describing the flow of the app is a good premise before we start to create a visual draft. And it's also a good way of coming up with essential sub-features we might not have thought about in the precedent step. So let's describe what the user will be able to do with the app. The first step will be to write a goal story. And you can use this template to do that. As the user persona, I want to accomplish something so that some benefit happens. So for us, it will be, as Kevin, I want to take a nice picture of what I'm doing so that people can see that I'm doing something cool. Notice that the goal is something we found out earlier when talking to the potential users and that we put in the persona. The next step is to break this goal story into smaller pieces explaining what the user will do. So our goal story is, again, as Kevin, I want to take a nice picture of what I'm doing so that people can see that I'm doing something cool. And in order to do that, I'll have to follow this flow. I open the app, I take a picture, I apply a filter to make it look good and therefore worth being shared. I can add a description to my enhanced picture and I can select on what networks I want to share it on. What I advise you to do is to use post-its. Write each story, the goal story and the small stories, on different post-its and stick them to the wall. This way you'll be able to move them around and modify them easily. While doing this, don't hesitate to try a few different things and combinations and compare them to see which one would be better. Again, a good way to do that is to show your potential users the different possibilities. Also, try to remove as much friction and unnecessary steps as you can when organizing your stories. For instance, here we could have asked the user to choose the filter before taking the picture. But asking the user to take the photo first is easier. He doesn't have to think. Making the first step of the flow very easy will maximize the chances of him completing the task. So we'll go back to selecting a filter after taking the photo. Alright, that's it for this lesson. Now take a piece of paper, write the goal story of your core feature using this template, and then break down the flow step by step using simple terms only. In the next video, we'll use a great tool that will allow us to take into account the user psychology to make sure that we're building an engaging app. So see you soon.